Greetings, this is Senior English B, and we are now back working with George Orwell's classic essay, Shooting an Elephant, in preparation for a little review of tomorrow. Let's begin by asking, first of all, you to think a little bit about the biography here of our author, okay, and the background. Here's the deal. If you don't understand who wrote this essay and a little bit of the background, the story itself can be, enlightening, but you're going to miss a lot of the important elements of this essay. Let's begin with Orwell. Orwell we'll start at 3A actually. Orwell is most famous for the writing of a very famous novel. Does anyone remember what the name of that novel is? Yeah, Animal Farm is obviously one of his also more important, but believe it or not, he wrote an even more important novel than Animal Farm. What's the most important novel that George Orwell wrote? 1984. Yes, 1984. Now this becomes a classic novel. When he writes it, 1984 is way, way far in the distance. Okay, it's in the future. And he pictures a world that is completely controlled by television cameras and TV monitors called Big Brother, that's always overlooking everything that happens in the existence of the human being. All right? Orwell is going to live two lives, for your notes. That is important. The first life he lives is the life as a British police officer in a country named Burma, which is a long, long ways away from England. It's in Burma that he will live as a police officer for a number of years. Now, if you want to think about this on a map, you've got the area that we today call Southeast Asia. That includes Vietnam and the like. And then you've got that huge landmass called India, right? You're familiar maybe with that on a map. In between those two is a little small country called Burma. And this is where Orwell is sent as a police officer. Okay? Now, his experience as a police officer lasts for a while, and then he comes back to England to live his second life. His second life is the life of a writer. It's there in England that, for example, he'll write his classic novel, 1984. Several of you mentioned Animal Farm. But he also wrote a collection of essays, of which Shooting an Elephant is one of those essays. These essays sought to try to explain or put into perspective the experience that he had had living in Burma. All right? Now, early on in this essay, Orwell kind of sets up a little bit of the background. He uses a term that is important for our notes. The term is Imperialism. Imperialism. The other word that we will use here is colonialism. Right? Now, I'll just make a note for yourself that I'm on page 1230. Right? Do you see it with me? On page 1230, at roughly line 38 or so, that paragraph that says, "One day," are you with me? "Something happened that in a roundabout way was enlightening. It was only a tiny incident in itself, but it gave me a better glimpse than I had had before of the real nature of imperialism, the real motives for which despotic governments act." Now, Mr. Brown, what is a despotic government? What is imperialism and what is colonialism? You'll maybe go back to my lectures I gave last year to you as juniors about the American-British tension that was colonial in nature. We even called them the original 13 colonies. What is colonialism? Mr. Brown, can you help us to understand what that is? Here the term is imperialism, colonialism. What is that?
Like when they set up their own soldiers in a foreign country.
Right. So basically colonialism, one country shows up in another country and says, "You're too stupid to run your own country. We're going to run it for you. Oh, and that's okay if you don't like it. That's why God made bullets. And we'll take care of you really quickly." Imperialism is the attempt to try to control another country and ostensibly begin to think of it as your own. Of course, let's point out this is not an act of humanitarianism. The reason why people show up in another country and colonialize it is for money and power, right? That is to say, you're going to extract large amounts of resources, sometimes out of the ground. Sometimes those resources, quite literally in the 18th, 19th century, were physical bodies. For example, you could take slaves this way. You would just force them or require them to have to do all kinds of labor for you, okay? Now, why are the British in Burma? Why does Orwell have to be in Burma? The British are colonizing Burma in the same way that they colonize what other areas of this region? India. They do. We are familiar, of course, with the great important work of Gandhi to try to say to the British, not anymore. It's time for you to leave. That is to say, the British are all over this region. They're in, for example, we have similar kinds of activities happening in South Africa, of course, in other parts of Southeast Asia and the like. Colonialism. Now, that's important to understanding this story. Because let's say it now for your notes. This is a story that we will call allegory. A-L-L-E-G-O-R-Y. Allegory. Okay? Now, the kind of essay, as we say it to be from your book, the topic is reflective essay. This is a reflective essay, meaning what, Mr. Lang? What does it mean to write a reflective essay? You reflect back upon an earlier time in your life. So, for example, if I were to ask you to write a reflective essay of your 9th grade year of high school, you'd have to remember back to 9th grade and write about that wonderful experience, you see. Well, here, Orwell is writing, to speak ironically, as I just said it about you in 9th grade, about a wonderful experience. Notice that he says something happened which in a roundabout way was enlightening. That is to say, there was this little moment that I had while I was in Burma. And looking back on it now, I guess I come to realize everything I needed to know about imperialism was pretty much contained in the story. Let me tell you the story. And with the exception of 1 or 2 moments in the rest of the narrative, all Orwell does, notice, is just simply chronicle the events of the story. Did you notice that? So he says, you know, I was in Burma, and there was this elephant, and this elephant went into heat. I don't understand, because some of you are maybe unfamiliar with the notion of these large animals. What's the big deal about one of these large animals going into heat? Right, tremendous power, tremendous power. I mean, these animals can run through walls. They can completely destroy houses. I mean, you know, you probably heard this story recently about this small steer that found its way inside of somebody's house and just tore the ever-living snot out of the inside of the house. Imagine that animal being amplified by 10 or 20 times, and then tremendous power because the animal is in must, he's in heat. And these animals then just go on a rampage. Now, normally what you do is you lock them down with chains. But this one had gotten free, had gotten away, and so he had run off, he'd done all kinds of terrible things, he had killed a man, stomped him to death, and now Orwell is called to do what? What is the job for Orwell? Well, this is interesting because it's, of course, it's like a double-layered job, right? On the one hand, he's the police officer, and therefore he's called. That is to say, something bad has happened, you're supposed to take care of us. Now, there's an understanding here that Orwell is writing this essay long after the fact. That's what the nature of reflective essays are all about. So he's kind of looking back and he's realizing he was stuck in quite a pickle. He was stuck in the middle of an unwinnable kind of dynamic. Jot down in your notes, what is the nature of this unwinnable dynamic for him? I don't get it. He's got a rifle, just go shoot the stinking elephant. The problem is what? Right away, the first time he sees the elephant, he says it out loud. What is it that he knows absolutely certainly he should not do? Shoot the elephant. Why not? The elephant himself appears to no longer be a source of danger for the people. Kind of obviously his period of must has kind of run its course. He's just now standing in the middle of a field eating grass. It's inhumane, Mr. Lang says, to just go shoot an elephant for no reason. There's also economic realities. Once you kill this animal, it's kind of like blowing up a really nice combine or something. You know, it's worth a lot of money if and only if it can work. And this is what they use the elephants for. They use them for work because they are tremendously powerful animals. But then there's the other side of the dilemma. What's the other side of the dilemma?
Being made a fool.
Now that's interesting. Lang says it that way. He doesn't want to be made a fool. Clearly that's the language he uses as well. But I don't understand made a fool. What does that even mean?
His reputation is at stake.
His reputation is at stake in what way?
Well, he just showed up with a rifle, so they're like, oh, he's going to shoot the thing, and then he doesn't shoot it, so they're like, well, he's a coward.
What is it that he says is his greatest fear?
To be laughed at.
To be laughed at. Now I don't understand. Why is that a great fear?
Because you're supposed to be the controlling party.
Ah, this is important. This is the moment in the story. Find the moment in the story where Orwell finally is able to kind of deconstruct the mythology of imperialism. And he talks about what is the one thing that cannot happen if you are the conquering people. If you are the person in charge, what's the one thing you cannot allow to have happen? Find in the essay the moment in the story where he points this out and what it is that he says about how he feels about that. Find us a page number, find us a line number. Where is it that he says what it is he now comes to understand about?
Is it page 1233, around lines 130?
Okay, start reading them for us. Go ahead.
I perceived in this moment that when the white man turns tyrant in his own freedom, that he destroyed.
By the way, you're reading at what line on page 1233?
I started on 129.
Got it, 129. Everyone should be reading with them.
It is his own freedom that he destroys. He becomes a sort of hollow, posing dummy, the conventionalized figure of the Sahib. For it is the condition of his rule that he shall spend his life in trying to impress the natives. And so in every crisis he has got to do what the natives expect of him. He wears a mask and his face grows to fit it.
I had got to shoot the elephant, he says. Next line. I don't understand. You got to shoot the elephant even though the elephant is now not causing any danger. What has he just said that is in the very essence of imperialism?
To do with the natives.
Who has the power? See, again, this is after the fact, right? He's gone through this experience. Now he's looking back at it and he says, light bulbs start coming on, even now as I write this. It's like, oh, this experience of just going out and having to shoot this elephant teaches me something, he says, about imperialism, about power, and about who has real power. In this situation, who has the real power? Interestingly, not him, not the white man, not the conqueror, not the guy with the gun. Well, then who has the power? The natives do. Why? Why do the natives have the power? I don't understand. What do we call this at Orwell High School? When we, for example, do something that we don't necessarily really want to do, but we're so afraid that our peers will, yeah, we call that, don't we? Peer pressure. That is to say, we do something that we don't really want to do, but we feel compelled to do. I don't understand why. What is it the essence of peer pressure, and how does it work? Analyze it for me for a moment. What is at the heart of peer pressure and how does it work? That's the brilliance of this essay, by the way. Orwell has seemed to kind of capture what is at the very heart of peer pressure. I don't want to do something. A whole bunch of people start to say you are going to do it, and then I go, okay, I'll do it. But even when I do it, I don't want to do it, but I still do it. I don't understand. What is at the essence of peer pressure according to Orwell? Fear of what?
Being laughed at.
That's it. The need for acceptance. Now, why is that so strong? Follow it now for the next step. So what? So they all laugh at you, and you go, no, I'm not going to do this. And so they all start laughing at you. Oftentimes, of course, in guy culture especially, it's about, oh, you must be a weenie, you must be afraid, you must be scared, you must be a chicken. And of course, a lot of guys have done really, really stupid things because somebody said, what are you, a wimp? And then the minute that question gets asked, it's really stupid. But I don't understand. Why does that work? When we meet at 3B, you can jot, or 3A, you can jot this down. When we meet Shakespeare's play Macbeth, the play that you've already seen on stage earlier this semester, remember? Remember how Lady Macbeth, his wife, is able to get him to do something really terrible like commit murder? She simply asks him one simple question. Are you a woman? That's it. That's it. That's all she has to ask him. Bam, he's done. Whatever it is that he's supposed to do now, he'll do it. Why? I don't understand. What's at the heart of that fear? In what way character?
Like, how do I explain? Like, I guess if you're gonna, like, you led the people up to that.
Yes.
And then you're gonna just drop it like that. and
He's
not
afraid that they'll do
it.
what?
Like,
Laugh at him.
exile him, pretty much.
Laugh at him, make him feel dumb. And he says it's the one thing you cannot have happen if you are a person in authority. You cannot have the other people laughing at you. Now, this essay raises some really interesting questions about positions of power and authority. Jot down at 3B, are you at all familiar with a moment where some individual who had power, supposed power, right, all of a sudden came to realize that individual did not have as much power at all? Think about how it works in regards to classrooms and teachers. Think about how it works in regards to substitute teachers.
As soon as you belittle them, as soon as you make them feel less than you, then you have the power.
Mr. Lang almost seems to speak as if he has some experience in this area.
My stepdad and me had a couple of
The idea of parents comes to mind here. Who has the real power and how you wield that power? Sometimes the real power is not by the person in charge, but by who? Right, the other people right underneath. All they have to do is to figure out where your vulnerability is. What are your fears? Play directly to those fears, and now you can control the individual. Shooting an elephant is a story that's simple in its nature. Notice how simple the narrative is, and yet it's an allegory. It suggests there's a second meaning to the story. The next time someone tries to inflict peer pressure on you and laugh at you to make you do something, you can, using the story, go, oh yeah, that's it. You're trying to get me to shoot the elephant. Nice one. No, I'm not going to do it though. Nice try though. I appreciate your attempt. And they'll look at you and say, shoot an elephant? I'm not. I just want you to try to do. No, I got it. Right. Doing something I know that I shouldn't do that's really stupid. Thank you.